What's up, guys? Rick here with something a little bit different for this week. As we all know, the Outlaw Tour or the Golden State Tour is really the main focus of golf going on right now. DraftKings has huge prize pools and contests for this. You can bet on it at almost any book that you look at. And Arizona and these mini tours are really the epicenter of the golfing world right now. So I was able to secure interviews with three of the players that we just saw at the GCU Championship, usually residing on the Korn Ferry Tour. So I've got Brent Grant, Dylan Wu, and KK Limbhasut coming up. KK just won the GCU Championship last week. We chat for a few minutes with each of them, talk about their game, their career, maybe some improvements they want to make to their respective tours. So sit back and relax. It's audio from this point out. So if you're watching on the YouTube channel, I'm just going to throw the logo up. It's only audio moving forward. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, I'd like to welcome in Brent Grant, who, Brent, you've been very gracious with your time today. I really appreciate it, man.
No, of course. No, it's all good, man. I really appreciate you having me on.
So for those who have, depending on when this all drops, Brent also joined us on the First Cut podcast on the CBS Sports podcasting network. So this has been really cool to get a couple of cracks at him. So Brent, just for those of listeners who are new to you, who are new to following, whether it's Korn Ferry Tour, whether it is now Outlaw Tour, Golden State Tour, can you just kind of talk us through your resume? Because from what I understand, you started playing golf fairly later in life, right?
Yeah. I'm sure that most people know that I started when I was about 12 or 13. I played baseball mostly growing up until then, and kind of got a late start, so not much of a junior golf resume, not much of a college resume either. Just a few amateur things, and then somehow I made my way to being a professional.
I love it. Well, you ended up finishing with a flurry in the final round. I always want to call it Sunday, but it was not Sunday. It was Thursday. Is it weird to kind of play in the middle of the week like that?
Honestly, we started the Korn Ferry Tour season in the Bahamas this year, and I think our tournaments were in the middle of the week there too. So, we obviously, I've kind of already gone through the awkward stage of that.
I gotcha. Yeah, you're used to it now. So 8 under in rounds 3 to finish 19 under par for the tournament. 2 shots back of KK Limbhasut, who I've been practicing his pronunciation. I think I'm doing pretty well there. What we talked about on the First Cut pod is that a lot of these events tend to be shootouts, and that's not that's also typical for the Korn Ferry Tour as well. Which in my world, Brent, that equates to a lot of fantasy points because the more birdies that you make, the more eagles that you make, the more you return to your fantasy owners. Now, you had mentioned that there is just a little bit of conversation about DraftKings in your world. How much are you guys aware of this? Like, I'll give you an example. Do you know what your odds to win this tournament last week were?
I believe they were 25-1, but that wasn't my own research. That was somebody telling me.
They were 25-1. So spot on. Now, has anyone, this is what I always get concerned about. Has anyone tweeted at you yet or sent you any messages on Instagram saying, hey, I bet you this week, good luck. I hope they haven't been too negative or anything.
Honestly, man, part of what I love about being under the radar is that not too many people even know I exist. Even the Outlaw Tour had to make their own special little nameplate out of handwriting that. So it's kind of fun. But a couple of people told me that they had me as part of their team or whatever it was, and a couple of friends said that I made them a little bit of cash, but I always appreciate the faith. Obviously, I know what I can do, and so it's kind of cool that people feel like they want to put their hard-earned money on that. And I take it as a compliment, and I've been fortunate enough not to have a huge, negative return on, or actually I haven't had any negative return on what happened this last week, which is really nice.
I love it. You kind of mentioned the fact that you have faith in yourself, and this is obviously something that we hear a lot from all athletes, right? Quarterbacks who think they're the best quarterback in the league. A lot of golfers think they can and almost should win every tournament that they play. When you tee it up, do you think you're the best guy out there?
That's a really great question. That might be the first time I've ever been asked that question. Honestly, it's never really been about the other guy for me. I know the kind of work that I put into it. I know the mental processes behind what gets me to the top of the leaderboard. But honestly, sure. When I'm out there, strutting my stuff, and I've got the swagger of a champion, I guess, is what I've been told. But it comes off like I think I'm the greatest player of all time. But quite honestly, I just try to go out there and beat the course.
That's cool. It's not certainly not a negative, right? Now with the Michael Jordan documentary and all that stuff, and that guy was 100% confident he was the best player in the world, and he told us it and he showed us it. So it's not necessarily a negative to have that swag, Brent. But are there any of your peers, whether it is guys that you played with this week, guys that you see regularly on the Korn Ferry Tour, that you're super impressed with their game?
There's actually a guy, his name is Matt Picanzo. He's been up in Canada, and I think he's played a few tour events as well, and he's dominated the mini tour for a long time. That's one guy that stands out to me as somebody that's really got the game to take it to the next level. But I'd say that I'm really impressed by John Oda. John's a good buddy of mine. I grew up playing with him. John doesn't hit it very far. He's shorter and weighs less than I do, and he works really hard on every single part of his game, and the things that he's been able to do, even on the PGA Tour level, has been absolutely incredible, and I can't wait to see what happens for him next.
That's really cool. I like that. One of the things that we talk about regularly when it comes to trying to find guys to bet or trying to find guys to put in our fantasy lineup is we look at majorly two things: how a player is playing recently, and if they've played well at that course before. And there's kind of two different camps of this, Brent, where some people say, you could be playing really, really poorly, and if you show up at a course that fits your eye, everything can click. I'm not sure I'm in that camp, but is that true? Can you be, struggling with your game, and then you show up at a place that maybe it's got, 12 dog leg rights, and it really seems to fit your eye, and all of a sudden things are back on track?
Yeah. I definitely 100% agree with that. It's obviously, when you look at the statistics, which are flying around endlessly nowadays.
Yeah.
It's hard to really pinpoint something like that, when there are so many variables that are involved in that. But a perfect example, and I can only speak for myself, but I missed the cut in Florida this year. And then took a week off, and then came right back in Mexico, and I played well, and it wasn't because I had necessarily done any work. I had actually spent the week in Vegas at a buddy's wedding the week prior to Mexico, so it wasn't like I was out there grinding. The course kind of fit my eye, and I was fortunate enough to finish the way I did. But even Tiger's the same way. He'll go to a course that he likes, and he'll dominate, and that's why he only plays in certain tournaments that he does.
Which makes right, yeah. You go to the place you've won 8 times. That seems to make a lot of sense for a guy like that.
Exactly.
Now, when you're trying to find something, so another common argument or conversation we have on our end in the media, and we're not touching sticks. We have no idea what's going on out there. We always say he found something, or it looks like Brent Grant found something. He shoots a 63 in the final round, or he was firing darts with his irons. He found something. He can carry that over into the next round. So I guess my question is, can you find something like that, whether it's a swing thought, whether it is a specific type of shot, and can you take that from week to week, or is it something that, sometimes it's, I can keep it going for 6 or 8 holes, and then I got to try to find it again next week? Talk me through, some of the things that you can kind of keep going in terms of positive momentum.
I think that obviously everybody, in what they do tries to find a certain feeling or phrase or perspective that has yielded success before, and they try to find it again. Unfortunately, in golf, it's a very finicky game, just like life. Things don't always go the way you think they will, just because they feel, smell, look, and sound the same. We step on golf courses, every single day, and we will play a hole, even if it has the same conditions, we could play a hole completely different just based off of how you feel, which, considering how many things go into the feeling of something in the human body, it's hard to pinpoint and say, this is exactly what it was. But I think short term, to be more specific, short term, you can definitely find something. I think the better players, and even the greats will tell you that they won or they did well without their best stuff. And I think that matters a lot. Of course, again, it's hard to put a statistic on that because if a player tells you I won with my C+ or B- game, which we've heard Rory and Tiger and all those guys say that. It's hard to put that into words, but into numbers, because they won.
Right.
But,
true.
Yeah. It's definitely, I don't think I've ever been able to find something that's lasted a long time in my professional career. I've done it in my amateur career, but that was against the same competition. So, and I've just kind of started the Korn Ferry Tour, so it's kind of hard to tell.
You mentioned kind of walking on a course and feeling something, which kind of threw a light bulb up in my head about another conversation that I seem to have almost weekly, which is kind of the types of grasses that are out there on tours. Mm-hmm. And you being a guy who seemingly has been all over, right? Born in Florida. I think you went to college in Hawaii. Now you're residing in Murrieta, California. You've kind of seen all of it. And we hear guys, oh, you know what? When I get to bent grass, it's going to be great. Or, those POA greens in the afternoon really start to bobble. Is there a grass type for you that you're most comfortable on?
That's a good question. I've said that a few times, but it's adapting to changing conditions is something that I have been fortunate enough to be raised in. With what my dad did in the Navy, it was kind of bred into me that you had to make sure that you weren't focused on the changes and just trying to adapt to them, the best to overcome them. And obviously experience trumps all, right? If you've never been on Bermuda greens and you see the ball moving up the hill, you're going to think that there's some sort of voodoo magic going on. And unless somebody tells you that, oh yeah, it's actually the grain of the green, you're going to be lost and you're going to think they're the worst greens in the world. And then when it comes to, bent or Poe or Zoysia or Kikuya or, all kinds of stuff or rye, that we have and it's all experience. The short game is different. The way the bounces are, the way the ball rolls, the way the ball comes off of the club is all different. And so I think it's strictly experience. And for me, I feel really, really comfortable when the grass is really, really tight, whether that's rye or bent or Bermuda. It doesn't really matter for me. So I'd say that, and then for the greens, I've been putting on toe for 3 years, and I've got those down, and I'd say that's probably some of my more favorite stuff, because I seem to not putt as great on bent for some reason. But then again, I don't necessarily have a ton of experience on bent grass, so that would make the difference.
Yeah. Kikuya is a bad word in my household, because that stuff just eats the club up, makes it really difficult for me. But I want to start to wrap here on a couple of lighter notes. So Brent, what do you? I assume you play a lot of golf, but what do you like to do for fun?
For fun, and honestly, it's tough to get out and go do all the things that I grew up doing, rock climbing and bodyboarding and going to the beach and all that stuff. When more extreme sports tend to result in injury, and my sponsors and my camp probably wouldn't appreciate that too much. So I try to stay away from that stuff. But and so if I can't do that, I just try to keep it simple. If I do get to go to the beach, that's great. If I do get a good glass of wine with some good company, then I'm happy. I'm a pretty simple guy, so it's not too complicated for me.
Love it. How'd you like using the carts this week on the Outlaw Tour?
Oh, fantastic! We were all by ourselves, and in threesomes and in 3 carts, and thankfully, Jesse Mueller over there at GCU, hooked that up for us, and it was great. I mean, the pace of play, I hadn't played a tournament like that, I don't think, ever. And, it's not like it'll happen, anytime soon. I don't even think it's Scottsdale Open it'll happen. But, at the end of the day, it was refreshing to just be able to play golf in the flow and not really have to worry about waiting on every shot like we do on the tour.
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of let these guys wear shorts, give them golf carts, let them use rangefinders. Like, you guys are getting the exact number anyway. You might as well do it quickly. Like, anything like that, I'm all in for. So I'm happy to hear your golf cart take as well.
Yeah, it was definitely way more fun for sure.
Awesome. Brent, well, you are going to tee it up next at that Scottsdale Open. You mentioned it, which is at Talking Stick, I believe, and we're going to see I think Joel Damon's in the field, Streelman. I don't know if Pat Perez is going to end up playing, but he's on the board over there. So that's the next time we're going to see you, right?
Yeah. It's the 11th to the 14th over there at Talking Stick, and I'm super pumped to compete against guys that have won and are competing right now on the PGA Tour. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Awesome. Brent, thank you so much for joining me now twice today. Really appreciate it. Best of luck.
Of course. Thanks so much, man.
All right, let's welcome in Dylan Wu. Dylan, you've been very gracious with your time today. You've recorded a couple of podcasts with us. So first off, welcome and thank you again.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So we kind of covered on the First Cut Pod on the CBS Sports Podcasting Network. We kind of covered a range of topics. I'm not going to ask you the same things over here. We're going to have a little bit more fun. So, Dylan, do you know what your world ranking is right now?
I actually do.
Okay.
I think I'm the only reason I've been looking at it at least this year on the Korn Ferry is originally, if you had to be in the top 500 to qualify for sectionals of U.S. Open qualifying, so you gotta skip the local qualifying. And ever since the first couple Korn Ferry events, I've kind of realized I've just been watching it. I think I'm ranked 305 in the world right now.
Yeah, I have you at 304, so I'll even improve it. I'll improve it by one notch. I was going to ask how often you check it, but I guess it makes sense that if there is a checkpoint or a marker that you need to make sure you're in, you're probably pretty aware of it.
Yeah, I think the one thing I've kind of learned, before when you're an amateur in golf, you kind of look at your amateur ranking, and now I understand what you need to do to improve your actual professional ranking. But no, it's getting closer up there, which I'm pretty happy about.
I love it. Yeah, I think one of the big questions that a lot of people have in terms of world golf ranking is they don't understand that it's like a rolling counting type situation. So when you don't play in a week and you could move up, for example, or someone takes over the world number one without actually playing. So a lot of misconceptions with the world golf ranking. So I'm glad you're on it, but I assumed you probably were.
Yeah.
So economics degree at Northwestern. Also, I believe your teammate, Sam Triplett, who also played in the Golden State Tour event last week, or that finished up yesterday. Is it nice to have kind of some peers and some teammates out on these tours with you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think if you looked at the field in the Golden State Tour event, especially with the guys at the top, like all of us, at least who live here in Arizona, are good friends, practice with them a lot. I mean, I can name a few people like KK, who won.
Yeah.
I mean, we roomed together in the Korn Ferry event in Mexico. I play with the Paul brothers a lot. I mean, in the mini tour lifestyle, I mean, even on the Korn Ferry and on the developmental tours, like it's kind of a teammate partnership bond where you're all kind of rooting for each other to get to the PGA Tour and get to the next level. So it's nice to have like Sam. I was teammates with him all 4 years. We lived together for 3 years. He lives here. He was part of the reason. I mean, having some golfers I knew after college is kind of the reason I moved to Arizona, just because it was either Arizona or Florida really for golf, and knew a little more people here. Like the drive, he's a little better, but no, the camaraderie is really good on this around in Arizona golf and in mini tour golf in general.
I love it. What would you be doing if you weren't a professional golfer?
What would I be doing? I mean, there's things I wish I would want to be doing. Like my girlfriend and I are really big foodies. We just love food. Like I literally only work out so I can eat food. I mean, eat anything I want. No, I would love. I mean, if I had one job to do the rest of my life, I would love to be like a food critic. Like I think my dream later on somehow is if I could own a restaurant or something. But I think if I was being realistic, if I wasn't playing golf, I'd probably want to work in the financial world. That's kind of why I wanted to go to a good academic school in college. Northwestern, got an economics degree. Kind of saw when I was in high school, the big relationship with golf in the business world and how golf plays a key role in that, just with developing relationships and how much relationships get done and business deals get done on the golf course, and using it as a tool if I ever need to go into the professional world. But I did a couple internships with Northern Trust in a small private wealth management firm. So I think if I wasn't playing golf, I'd probably be working in finance and either wealth management. Probably in private wealth management and using my golf skills to my advantage and trying to do something where I could still golf a lot.
Yeah, having business meetings on the golf course and being the ringer, I imagine would go a long way in business, or at least for the companies that I've worked for.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I played with, in the pro-ams and stuff like that, I played in the last 2 years or more. You give one guy who's, say, a CEO or plays an important role in their company, if you give them like a small tip on the golf course, they're leaping for joy. So, no, it's definitely, people say, you hate to say it, but it's kind of who you know and building relationships that really help in the world.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to turn our attention a little bit to the GCU Championship from I want to keep saying last week because my brain is trained that these tournaments end on Sunday. But so I always say last week, but I should say like yesterday or last event. T5 for you in Phoenix. Now, from what I see in these generally mini tour events, and I think the Korn Ferry Tour kind of has this same type of reputation, is these are shootouts, man. I mean, the winning score, KK posted 21 under in 3 rounds. There's not many places that you can go out and shoot a 68 in round 2 and you're losing ground on the field. Talk to me about what it takes to win something like this.
Yeah, I think when you come out of college, you don't really realize professional golf until you get to the PGA Tour isn't as perfect as it seems. Like in college golf, you get to play great courses, hard courses, and say you shoot 70 every round in college, you'll be a first-team All-American. You'll be like top 10 in the country.
Yeah.
And if you shoot 70 on the PGA Tour, you'll make every cut basically.
Right.
But the reality is that if the best courses across the country aren't hosting PGA Tour events, they probably want to host the best college players. They don't really want to host mini tour events or Korn Ferry events or even other professional events. So the reality is that we're professional golf until you get to the PGA Tour. You're not really playing as many hard courses as you think you would when you're playing in college. You're not going to play courses that they play on the PGA Tour. So the courses are shorter. The courses are more prone to making birdies. So that's kind of the reality when you turn pro. And if you're not playing in PGA Tour events right away, you kind of get in the reality of like, okay, 68 is not really good anymore. I mean, one thing to really show how good you have to play or how low you have to shoot is just the reality of Monday qualifying. I mean, Monday qualifying for a PGA Tour event or Korn Ferry event, you're going to have to shoot 63, 64. You could shoot 65 on a hard day. Maybe it's windy and you miss it. I mean, it's just the reality that you have to go low. And I think professional golf, until you get to the PGA Tour, really teaches you to keep the gas on the pedal. I mean, you're always trying to focus on trying to find a way to shave one more shot and go even lower. Like, just try to go as low as possible, basically, just because you are playing course, especially here in Arizona in the mini tour events. You're usually playing in good condition. Ball's going far right now because it's 100 degrees. The greens are probably soft because they're watering because it's hot outside. So, I mean, all those conditions are perfect for scoring and perfect for pros to eat it up when you're playing courses that are maybe more wedges. Driving is not hitting the fairway isn't that big of a premium versus if you play on the PGA Tour, you're hitting the rough, you're playing firm greens. Like making par in a mini tour event is not good. So that's kind of just the reality of the situation, is that we're playing a little easier courses. But I think you're also seeing the fact that, like any other sport, the gap between all levels of professionals is getting narrower. So the best college players, I mean, the best junior golfers, the best college players, once they turn pro, you're seeing them have an effect on the PGA Tour. You see like Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, Matt Wolff, all those guys that come straight out of college and win on the PGA Tour. It's just the preparation, the skill level, the mental prep, the mental focus is so much better nowadays, and you get trained at an early age now. So when you do turn pro, your guys play without fear, and they're better prepared. So I think that shows that when you can have a guy that wins a mini tour event. I mean, if you shoot 21 under, you don't really see, if the PGA Tour event was there for 3 days, the winning score might be 23 under. It's not going to be that much lower. And that's just the reality of the situation, is that golf's getting better at every level, but we're playing a little easier courses. So you do have to keep the gas on the pedal.
You mentioned the razor thin margins, which is something I kind of think about all the time. You know, what's the difference between the 100th player on the PGA Tour and the 30th on the Korn Ferry Tour? And you hit the nail on the head, which is something we interviewed Colin Morikawa a couple of weeks ago and kind of asked him about this. Like, how are these college guys so ready all the time? It seems like the younger players are getting so much better. I think Colin had said, he like knew a lot of the guys who were already on tour. He was kind of like friendly with them. He kind of knew what to expect. I'm a big believer that a lot of it is technology and coaching, Dylan. You know, guys have access to launch monitors at earlier ages. They know their numbers. It feels like a much easier comparison to make when it's kind of like ball speed to ball speed type of thing. Where do you lie into why these young guys, yourself included, are so good and so ready when they come out of college?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Colin. Like, when you see people that you've played with in junior golf or all your life succeed, it definitely helps a lot. So seeing guys maybe a couple years older than him, I think a few guys maybe like Sam Burns, Joaquin Neiman, are guys similar to Colin's age or like my age too. Like, once you see somebody have success, Cameron Champ, I mean, you've played with them before, you've beat them before, you know that your game is good enough through that comparison. I mean, one thing with professional golf is that, yes, we're getting better, have better technology. I mean, with TrackMan, with fitness training, with everything, but also with mental prep. I mean, like psychologists using mental coaches and everything. It really helps when you mature a lot, and it doesn't take you as fast to learn what you need to do for professional golf. I think the one thing before, I mean, say looking at professional golf 20 years ago, there's maybe one thought on what a swing should look like, how you should swing a golf ball, how you should think on the golf course and stuff like that. And now you see guys, I mean, you could go through 15 guys on the PGA Tour and they swing a completely different way. All of them swing a different way. And it's kind of, I think people are realizing that all it takes to really get to the PGA Tour is kind of finding the right game plan for you and what fits your golf DNA, and just improving that and getting it better, and just having full confidence and belief in your game, and just slowly trying to get that better and better, and you'll eventually make it.
You mentioned on the First Cut pod kind of how the Outlaw Tour has really leaned into being the only show in town. And you mentioned the live streaming of some of the featured groups, which I obviously tuned into, of course. Had to keep an eye on everything. Have you noticed that, I mean, that event yesterday and the previous days had so much attention? I mean, we talked about it. You knew your betting odds, that it was available to be bet on. Fantasy sites like DraftKings had huge contests for it. Did you get that vibe? Did you know that going in, that basically all of these, golf dweebs on the internet were going to be tuning in for that event?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality is, like, the last couple of weeks is, like, I've learned that we're basically the only mini tour and the only state that's really running with golf. Like, the coronavirus really hasn't changed much here, other than maybe we ride in separate carts and putt with the pin in all the time. I mean, that's the only thing that's changed. But no, it's really cool because we're getting, I mean, not only does it help the players because we're getting exposure, but the tour is getting exposure, and it's helping. People are realizing, they're learning more about the stories of pro golfers who are trying to get to the PGA Tour and fulfill their dream. I think it's like the stuff that the Monday Q Info guy on Twitter, he's blown up in the past year, 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like the similar situation where people want something to watch and to keep entertaining, because right now life is really boring. Like if I wanted to, I mean, after I played and finished my round yesterday at GCU, it took 3.5 hours, and then what am I also going to do the rest of the day here? I mean, I could go practice, but I just finished a tournament. So, I mean, people like, it's nice to have that much focus on a mini tour event. I mean, we're probably never going to have a time again where some random people are betting on the Outlaw Tour or Golden State Tour, and it's pretty cool. And it's pretty cool that people are wanting to see these live streaming and are tuning in. And it's just it's a cool situation in this rough time. So I think that's the positive note for the Golden State and professional golf here in Arizona.
You kind of mentioned what I think, and I don't have to get you on the record for this, but like where the PGA Tour has kind of been slow to embrace anything related to betting, anything related to fantasy. But I think the biggest win that comes out of fantasy golf or betting on sports is the knowledge of a lot of these golfers. For example, the PGA Tour, I mean, good or bad, right or wrong, they might only promote the top 10 players in the world. But a lot of fantasy guys who play fantasy golf and guys who bet know a lot of these other names. Sam Burns was a great example. Sam Burns is like a fantasy darling that if you ask my dad who Sam Burns is, he doesn't know. So I feel like, and maybe it kind of goes the same way here. This is all about learning the players. When you guys get to the Korn Ferry, the PGA Tour, we know the stories. We know Max Homa. We know guys who are going to be making runs when they make runs deep in events. To me, it's so much about the knowledge and learning about these guys that I feel like is the big thing to embrace here.
For sure. I mean, the one thing, if I was the PGA Tour, I'd be doing the same thing. I mean, you want to keep advertising the guys who are the best in the world, the top 10 players in the world, the guys that bring fans and that are going to bring the money in.
Yeah.
But the one good thing with all these, with the betting, I mean, not necessarily the betting, but the people actually through whatever information or whatever website or whatever avenue for people to get the information and learn about these players who are coming up, whether it's in amateur golf, mini tour golf, or Korn Ferry golf. Like, people knew, I mean, as a golfer, like, I knew that, say, Colin Morikawa and Matt Wolff were probably going to succeed and probably going to have a chance to win on the PGA Tour. And guys, you can just look at that based off their amateur resume. I mean, I think that's why you see, like, the Golf Channel is now broadcasting the national championship more. Like, you'll see more college golf events being broadcasted. You see, like, a program where, say, college golfers, I mean, the best amateurs that graduate from college can get status in the Korn Ferry and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think people are slowly realizing that, like, all right, these new guys that are on the PGA Tour succeeding aren't just coming out of nowhere. Like, they've been doing this for a while. I mean, like, you see Jordan Spieth and Justin Thomas. Like, Justin Thomas played on the Korn Ferry and gained it through that. And I think people are slowly, at least I think as a golfer, I think it's cool. I think people really like everybody loves an underdog story or wants to see the pathway of how somebody gets to the PGA Tour, the journeyman and stuff like that. So I think there's definitely a lot of good going on with professional golf where there's a lot more, at least the underneath the PGA Tour are getting a little more exposure, which is really just good for the game in general.
I agree. Okay, Dylan, we'll wrap with this. You mentioned, riding a cart this week at the GCU Championship. I am the opposite of a traditionalist when it comes to golf. I think we should be giving you guys rangefinders every week and carts every week and all that good stuff. Wear shorts if you want to. I don't really care. This is where you get the opportunity to be like tour commissioner for a day. Is there a rule that you would change if you were in charge? Is there something specific you can think about that would be top of mind?
I'm trying to think. And if there was just like similar to like the card thing and stuff like that, I definitely think eventually rangefinders should be allowed in PGA Tour events. I mean, it's only knowledge. I mean, it's only information. Like, a launch monitor is basically doing the same thing. I mean, It's only helping the caddy and helping the player, and it's speeding up play. And pace of play is a huge thing on the PGA Tour. They've made it like a huge thing. Why don't you just use rangefinders? I mean, yes, it makes caddies their job less, but I mean, they're still gonna probably want to double. It only helps. It makes you double check. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, you've seen it like it's developing, but I definitely think hopefully one day we'll be able to use rangefinders just because it's so much easier and it speeds up play. Like when, say, if Jordan Spieth at the Open Championship when he won that year, just had a rangefinder there. I mean, it's cool just to see it. But I mean, if you're actually there in real time, like if I was watching as a fan and this is taking forever. Like,
what's he yelling at Greller? Just give me a round number, right? Like he's just trying to find something.
I mean, the one good thing is that, I mean, I can't really imagine playing golf anymore without patting down spike marks. I'm like playing in the afternoon in the last group and there's spike marks everywhere. Like, that is brutal. But also, I mean, shorts is it's really nice to wear shorts in practice rounds. I mean, it's only really bad wearing pants maybe in July, August when you're playing in the Midwest, say like in Omaha, and that's pretty brutal. But not too bad. I think a lot of players, at least like players I know and stuff like that, they complain about like when you hit a perfect drive in the fairway, balls being in divots and stuff like that. If you've already made so many changes to make the game more fair. I mean, the reality is, like, if you're playing a par 4 on the PGA Tour and everybody's hitting iron, everybody's going to hit in the same spot. You're probably going to have a chance of being in a divot. I mean, it shouldn't just be. So, I mean, there's small things like that. But I think the rangefinder thing is probably something that I would change. I would definitely want that. Because, I mean, they're using it in practice rounds. I mean, caddies go out in the morning before they play and shoot the distances. I mean, they're using it, but going around the rules.
Yeah, those are two perfect ones. The range, you guys are getting the numbers anyway. You're getting the exact number anyway. You might as well speed it up for the rangefinder. That's my opinion.
The commentators are using it on TV.
Yeah.
It's like, why would the commentators want to tell the fans and tell the audience like the exact number, and then the caddy and the player have to do separate work for it? Like, okay, it doesn't really make much sense.
It doesn't. Dylan Wu, we are going to see you next. Legacy Classic, which is, I guess, Golden State Tour.
Golden State Tour.
And Outlaw Tour, they're like combined now, right?
Yeah.
They're like running. Okay. And then in 2 weeks, we will see you at that Scottsdale Open at Talking Stick. Is that correct?
Yep.
I love it. Dylan Wu, thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck rest of the way.
No, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, let's welcome him in. Winner of the GCU Championship, it's KK Limbhasut. Hey, KK.
Hey, how are you?
Good. We so full disclosure, KK has been incredibly gracious with his time today. So we just spoke on another podcast, and we're going right back at it again. So you're great, KK. Much appreciated, man.
Yep, thank you. No problem.
All right. So here's one thing I want to get into. We kind of chatted about, you know, the Outlaw Tour this week being a really big focus in the world of golf. And you were mentioning, like, you know, the live streaming, like, how aware were you that so many new people who may have never watched the Outlaw Tour before or never watched mini tours before were watching you guys play this week?
You know, I think it's a really good experience for the players because, you know, most of the mini tours event don't get, you know, coverage or like news out there. So I think it's really, really good that, you know, guys on tours like this get recognized because, you know, these guys work so hard and, you know, everyone has the same goal of making PGA Tour, and they actually are very good at golf. So it's a very good way to get exposure out for these guys and even the tour themselves.
Now, were you aware that we could bet on you, KK? We could make a bet for you to win the golf tournament. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I think I saw like betting odds on players like a couple of weeks ago, and I think that's, you know, kind of fun to look at, honestly. You know, going to events like, what are my odds for this week?
So I have to tell you, I did bet you at 12-1. So if we ever cross paths, I owe you a beer. So thank you very much, KK.
Oh, it got cut off a little bit.
Oh, I was saying I did get a chance to bet you at 12-1.
Oh.
So if we ever cross paths, I will buy you a beer. I owe you that. Thank you.
Sounds good. I'll take that. Yeah.
Awesome. So here's what I want to ask you about, because you know, you've been playing a bit on the Korn Ferry Tour. I know you've teed it up, I believe, at the Farmers Insurance on the PGA. Is that right?
Yep. This past January.
Yeah. Just tell us, like, the difference. You know what I mean? So what's the big difference between the players on the PGA Tour versus the Korn Ferry Tour, or even just, like, I assume the crowds are a big difference, right? I mean, I go to that event at Torrey Pines. I live close by.
Yep.
They get huge crowds. How does that compare to a Korn Ferry Tour event?
I mean, from what I experienced, I only play one PGA Tour and two Korn Ferry events, but, you know, the crowds at the Farmer is just unbelievable, like how many people showed up. Even for Thursday and Friday, I didn't make the cut, so I didn't see the weekends. But even for Thursday and Friday, it was an amazing experience to see how many people go out there and watch golfers. But yeah, like, to compare the two tours, I mean, Korn Ferry probably don't get as much spectators, but the level of golf on the Korn Ferry Tour is still really, really good. Like, guys on that tour can easily be on the PGA Tour. It's just, you know, when are they going to play well and all that kind of stuff will be a factor.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. You know, the margin between these guys is so small. I mean, it's so close. It's just a matter of
Yep.
getting a little lucky here or a little unlucky or something like that. But the overall level of play, especially on both the PGA Tour and the Korn Ferry Tour, is unbelievably good. And you seem to agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could play the whole year like very well, and then kind of struggle in the playoffs or like the postseason, and then you didn't get your PGA Tour card, but your skill level still doesn't change. You still have the game to play on a PGA Tour, but you could have a bad 3 stretch of weeks during the playoffs. That's why you didn't get your tour card or something like that.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. Now, do you I know I get nervous a lot playing golf, and I would get nervous if even one single person was watching me play. Do you still get nervous playing, or is it just kind of like this is your job and you're there to work?
Oh, I still get really nervous, teeing off almost every tournament, that first tee shot, But playing at Farmers this past January was a really cool experience because it's my first PGA Tour, and I never played with that many people watching me, and it was cool to see how I can handle myself with a crowd for the first time. And I know like first 5 to 6 holes, I was super nervous, just worrying if I miss the fairway, am I going to hit someone on the car path or something like that. But yeah, I was really impressed how I handled myself at Farmers, and I think I can play out there on the PGA Tour.
I love it. Now, the best thing I think about professional golf and having a lot of fans there is I would be nervous, but if you hit it way to the right, like they find your ball for you. Like you don't even have to go find your ball, right? That's the best part.
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah.
As long as you don't hit anybody in the head.
Yep.
Cool. So the Outlaw Tour, what we saw you play the GCU Championship this week. You win at 21 under par. You've been playing really, really well coming into this. Was there a moment that you said, "Hey, I think I can really win this thing"? I know you only won by 1 shot, but was there a moment where you knew your game was good enough to win that?
I think after shooting the course record on the first day, I mean, definitely gave me a lot of confidence going to that tournament or the last 2 days. But I think it was the front 9 of the last day, like Jimmy Gunn and Brendan Jelly was making birdies left and right on the first like 5 to 6 holes. But like I think the birdie on hole 2 for me is like a long par 3. Gave me a lot of confidence going to that day, and like I definitely can win this week if I just play my game and just keep sticking to my game plan, and hopefully putts will drop. But yeah, I think the front 9 of that final round was big thing to me. Gives me a lot of confidence going to the back 9. Yeah.
So for the vast majority of those listening or hearing about this, we might have only seen you play on Periscope this week. So tell us about your game, KK. What's the best part of your game? What's the worst part of your game? I mean, it was all really good this week, but over time, what kind of things do you work on in your game?
Yeah, I work a lot on my wedges, my short irons, because I think that's where I can really score. And like on a mini tour like this, we don't play on courses that long, so we have a lot of wedges and short irons into like par 4s. But yeah, I think that's the strongest part of my game, hitting wedges and short game around the greens. But I know like in order to play on a big tour, like I probably have to hit a little longer, gain more swing speed. So I've been working a lot with my coach to gain speed, but also, keep it in play at the same time.
Yeah, you kind of need both of those things.
Yeah.
Now, you got to ride in a golf cart this week. That
Yep.
seems like a big win.
Yeah, it's always nice to be in a golf cart, especially it was 100 degrees out there this past week.
That's nice. Now, KK, you told us on the First Cut podcast that you played golf today, the day after you won your golf tournament, and you'll take your day off on Saturday. So on Saturday, what do you like to do for fun? What are you gonna do?
Honestly, it's just mostly just, play my PS4, watch Netflix movies, and, take it easy for a day.
What games are you playing?
I play Call of Duty.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, I play a lot of my teammates from Cal and a couple guys here in Arizona.
It's funny because when I told you earlier, we had Colin Morikawa on the pod a couple of weeks ago, and he said the same thing. He's playing Call of Duty with his Cal teammates or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I was the one to convince him to buy a PS4. So.
Oh, so you're the one that got him into it. Okay.
Yeah, I got him into this thing.
That's awesome. Well, now it all makes sense. Okay, KK. Well, you're gonna continue to tee it up. You've got Legacy. I want to call it's the Legacy Classic next week. Probably Scottsdale Open in 2 weeks, and it seems like you're just gonna play as much golf as you can until the Korn Ferry Tour comes back.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's the best way for me to learn about my game and where it stands because I feel like playing tournaments give me, I guess, sense of what I need to practice on and get ready for the Korn Ferry to start back up soon.
Well, KK, I'm rooting for you. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck next time you tee it up.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thanks again for having me.